If you've been alive recently, you know that a lot of people are trying to get you to pick up new habits, like maybe habits of highly successful people or habits of this and habits of that.
Or moderately okay people.
But you know what? Who has time for habits? Because quite honestly, most of us are pretty full to the brim with things. So today we're going to talk about habits worth giving up or habits worth quitting, or if you want a title to a book or something, habits for losers, something like that. So this is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
This is an
Yeah,
interesting
this is
one because everybody like there's a million I just look at these things like I read these books and they just have so many things to do and so much and they're like when do people have time to do this? I just don't get
yeah.
it.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think forming routines and habits it is really helpful, like having some in your day, but it can get overbearing too, where because I like having like we talked about like the bookend, like I have like a little bit of things I do in the morning and at night that kind of like just rounds things out and gives you some structure, and then like I have like broader things during the day, but not it gets to the point where people some of these books recommend like a 10-minute breakdown of your day, and it's like, dude. Hey, first of all, I don't have time for that,
Well, you
making
know
this
why they
day.
do
And then
that?
on
So they
top of
can
that,
sell the
it's
freaking
like,
notebook and the pen
yeah,
and the
yep,
Pomodoro timer. Like that's honestly why
yeah,
they do that stuff.
literally what it's
And
for.
people buy all the gear for it, tell everybody on Facebook they're going to do it, and then they do it for a day or two and they're like, this is ridiculous, and they
Yeah,
quit. But
yeah.
I think that's a good thing because today we're going to be talking about habits worth quitting because there's a lot of habits that people have, but a lot of them are garbage. So who wants to
There's
go
also,
first? Oh.
well, I think there's also, I was gonna say, there's also habits you get into kind of without knowing, and I think some of those are the worst ones.
Hmm.
Like, I want to mention one because I think this used to affect me a lot more, and I've stopped it. But like excessive, like checking email or work stuff when you're not working,
Oof.
or
Yeah.
when you're not supposed to be working, like when you're like out doing something, you have a day scheduled off or something, right? And like doing that, I noticed like I stopped doing that and I feel so much better because it's stress inducing because there's always going to be something. There's
Dude,
always going to be something in your email. There's always going to be something somebody wants you to do. Like,
and
yeah,
it's freaking absurd. Like I was out for a friend's birthday last week and it was like a Thursday night at like 10 o'clock at night. And they're like, I have to take this. This is an important work call. And I'm like, dude, it's 10 o'clock.
yeah,
Like,
it's not
tell them
important.
no. Like, it's
Yeah,
crazy,
F off, do it in the morning during work hours.
right?
But I think that was one of the biggest mistakes of like the internet and cell phones and connectivity was all these employers realized they can basically get people to work like 24/7
Hmm.
and never have any time off. And it's also not good to always be thinking about like work because well, work can be stressful, right? If you have deadlines and stuff, and if you're always thinking about that, you're never giving your brain time to like calm down. You never you're always stressed. You're never look at that. Like, you're out with friends at 10 o'clock and like now they're stressed about this. Like, give me a break. Like it can
Hmm.
totally wait till the morning.
Yep,
Like, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a great one. So, along those same lines, habits worth quitting is social media. Because, yeah, sure, you can keep up with people and it can make you feel good when you get likes or thumbs ups or whatever the heck you get. But quite honestly, does it really add that much to your life or does it take away a lot more? Not only your privacy, but also your happiness because you're constantly comparing yourself to other people
Yeah.
and your time, your attention. It's crazy.
Well, you know what's funny with those apps too is like, look, none of these things are inherently in and of themselves, I guess, bad. But the problem with them is too is like you could start out wanting to use like social media for the right reasons, like connecting with friends or like, whatever, and following maybe something that you are interested in or something. But then they're all geared to get you to stay on there.
Yeah,
And
and
so
they're
it's
just
very
advertising
easy.
platforms.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to slip into. And like I know so many people I talk to, like they're like, yeah, I didn't even realize like I just started scrolling on Facebook or whatever, Instagram, and then it's like 2 hours is gone. And it's like, that's insane. And it's so easy to get caught up in. And then you feel like you need to, because once you start doing these things, there's all these built-in mechanisms to make you feel, it's funny, like when I got my new phone, I got a Pixel, and Google has like a Google News feed that when you swipe to one side, it pulls up. And I turn it off because I notice when I leave it on, I'm not even interested in this stuff that much, but I'll find myself just wasting time looking at it when
Hmm.
it's nothing I need to be paying attention to. And it's like, so I just turn that whole feature off because it's just, distracts me and puts in screen time that I don't need, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one too, because I think it does take a lot of willpower to just realize that you don't need it. But once you don't you stop using it, dude, you totally don't need
Well, you know, it was great. You know, it was crazy. So I did it back in like a long time ago when the book 4 Hour Work Week came out because he talked about going on a media diet. And so at that time, I just decided, okay, I'll just do Facebook Fridays. So like Friday all day, I can spend as long as I want on Facebook. Any other days, I'm not allowed to go on there. And so I did that. And then after a few weeks or whatever, it would be Friday, and I'd be like, there's really nothing worthwhile on here. I didn't miss
it.
anything. It's not like it's not adding to my life. And eventually I just stopped.
Well, you know what's funny? It's also you see the same sort of thing with like this idea of like keeping up with the news and stuff, right? It's like I remember like when we were younger, like, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't even cable. And the news was basically 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. They'd repeat the
Yeah,
same
and there was
program a
a
few
daily
times so that
newspaper,
well,
It
yeah,
was a
that's it,
one-time
right? And
thing.
so,
Yeah.
like, keeping up with the news meant something very different back then, where, like, you were getting basically broad information on really important things that happened, both locally and globally, but they were really concise. This wasn't the 24-hour talking heads. And I think the mistake is that people think, oh, I got to keep up with the news to be a good citizen or informed citizen. It's like, well, to do that now means 24/7 just garbage. Where like you don't that's not necessary. It worked totally fine with like basically a half hour a day.
Dude,
So
and if you don't watch the news, people get so excited to tell you about the news. They'll be like,
yeah,
they'll
you'll
start
hear about
complaining
it.
about something, and you'll be like, I have no idea. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, you don't know about this, blah, 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 blah. And you find out all the news
I
without
don't
doing
watch the
anything.
news and I don't go on social media and I always hear about things.
Yep.
Somebody always invariably tells you. It's like,
Yep.
yeah. Also, you know what's going on too, because it's like the same stuff's going to keep happening and it's like just keeps get repeated. So you know what's happening. It's not that hard.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Cool.
think that's a bad one too.
Oh, here's
Oh, I
another
have,
one.
okay.
Well, so like unhealthy habits. In terms of like physical health. So things that go on that list could be smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol,
That's why I
especially
switched to vapes.
excessively. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And anything else, hard drugs like that, because even though they're fun, they really do kind of hurt you.
No, yeah, they hurt your health. Well, you know what it is too? It's like it's that whole problem of moderation too. Because like, look, there's lots of stuff accessible. Like, weed's legal now. You have alcohol. Depending on
Mhm.
where you live, you might have access to other things,
But the
cigarettes,
thing is, they're
nicotine.
they're they're highly addictive
Yes,
substances.
yeah. Well, all of them
And they
are,
make a
right?
lot of money for the government, which is why they're legal, but they're highly addictive substances. And if it's like, it's like, well, why don't we just make heroin legal? And it's like, well, because that's bad, but then it's like, well, cigarettes are just as addictive as heroin,
Yeah.
pretty much. And
Well, and
that
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
well, I was gonna say that like the nicotine actually hits your bloodstream faster than heroin
Yeah.
does. And so
Oh, yeah.
it's like arguably more addictive, but it's up to the personal opinion. But and one's okay and one's not. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right too. I think it's funny that, paying attention to your health generally, but also like especially with these things. And it's funny because I've known people throughout my life who like they can totally have a cigarette when they go out drinking or something, and that's it. And they are fine. There's
But they're
no
few
like
and far
need.
between.
They are few and far between. Most people, like I know even myself, like even after switching to the vapes because they're better on your lungs and stuff, like if I go out drinking and I do have a cigarette, like I still want one really badly the next day. And it's like, so you do have to be careful. And that's even with the nicotine supplement that I'm using. So it's like,
Hmm.
it is interesting how that works, but there's just way more chemicals in there. But that's a good one, I think, because those are easy habits to fall into. And especially when stuff's legal, it's easy because it's offered everywhere. It's so
Hmm.
easy to get, right?
In
It's not like you're
shiny
doing it.
packages that
Yeah,
like eye-appealing packages. I mean, you look go
yeah,
into a liquor store and it looks like a candy store.
yeah. Oh, it does. I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
Hmm.
It is kind of insane. Um, Here's another good one too for habits that I think you have to watch out for and you should break is like the grind habit of thinking
Mm.
that like you have to get so
But
much
how am I
done
going to be a
today.
billionaire if I don't
Yeah,
grind?
yeah, right. That you have to work like 3,000 hours a week, that you have to skip sleep. I think these are dangerous habits to get in the habit of because you also have a life. And like I think it's so funny that we idolize all these people that are so freaking miserable. Like they're not happy. They have what people want because they have this insane wealth. And I get why people like idolize that and like drool over the wealth. But the rest of the life is not appealing. And
Yeah.
like even sometimes like it's hard too because sometimes you look at like some of the older ones like Bill Gates and stuff like that when they get older like I think some of them do level out a little and like they probably are enjoying their lives a little bit more but by and large like they don't enjoy their lives. They're not happy. It's constant like they have and think about the decisions they have to make too. They ruin people's lives all the time for money. And it's like is that really what you want? I think so knowing what you want and also like that can be a very good way to kind of get rid of some of these negative habits of, idolizing the wrong thing and
Hmm.
grinding to your
Yeah,
death.
grinding is a terrible habit worth giving up. I mean, sometimes it can be necessary because sometimes if you
Yeah.
want to achieve something, you might have to for a little bit, but you got to realize what the ends are. And
Well, I think that's the difference though, right? Between like having a goal and working towards something versus like feeling like you have to do it just for the sake of doing it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. And so kind of that habit touched on it, but also another one that we were talking about touched on it is comparison with others. So that's a
Yeah.
habit that's worth giving up because it's so easy to like pick and choose. Like I want this person's money and that person's body and that person's relationship and
Yeah.
that person's job and that person's that. But like nobody has all of those things. That's your fantasy. And if you
Well,
do
they
that,
have one because it takes all their time for that one
right.
thing, you know?
Yeah. Like I remember when I was in undergrad, I lived with a couple with like a pro skater and then a couple other really good skateboarders. And I mean these kids were insane. Like they would do stuff that blew your mind. But one of them didn't even know how to work a microwave. And he was in university and he didn't know how to work a microwave and it blew my mind because it's like the simple it's not like you're cooking something on a stove. It's like you
No.
push a button and figure it out and he just couldn't do it. But you hand him a skateboard and he's very gifted.
Well, that's the thing though, because they spend all their time doing that one thing, right? And they get very good at it, and that's awesome. And I think that is also the trade-off people have to realize too. It's like, what do you want out of life? Because a lot of these people, this is the thing that they is their focus 100%. It's like Olympic athletes, right? When they're young, like that's all they do. They don't have
Hmm.
social lives. They're not doing, I mean, half of them aren't
Yeah,
even in
like
school
Simone
because they're,
Biles got a whole bunch of gold medals, but she wasn't allowed to date anyone.
yeah, I mean, like, and so there's these trade-offs that you have to ask yourself, like, is that really what I want to be that good at it? Or is it something like, because hobbies are also fun and you don't have to be the best. You can be crappy and still enjoy it, you know? And I
Hmm.
think that's something to realize too. That's a good one. Yeah. Like, dude, self-comparisons or comparisons to others is the worst. It really is. I think, another good one too for like, and I think this is a tough one, but like especially nowadays, I think like, I was looking at statistics, it's like over 70, I think 4% of Americans now live check to check. There's like a lot of stress and
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, the more stress we get, the easier it is when you have time off to do nothing, to just like veg and watch TV and like not in and I don't mean like do nothing in the sense of like trying to earn more money, but like also not like enjoying time with your family or like going out and doing things you want to do and stuff like that. So I think that is a dangerous one too, of the habit of like getting into the habit of when you have time off, just doing nothing at all.
Hmm.
And just like, because it's like, I think that starts to build into this like depressive state over time. Because
Yeah.
it's like all you do is like work and then nothing, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, because it doesn't rejuvenate yourself. You're not like benefiting from it. It's just
No.
like a mindless thing where things aren't terrible.
But it's super easy to get in the habit of doing too, because
Hmm.
it's like we all want to break and like, and it's easy to feel just like overwhelmed and tired. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned so like with mentioning the money thing, a couple thoughts came up on that. So one habit worth giving up is the habit of not learning. And the other habit is spending nonstop. Because it's like you can essentially learn anything. I mean,
Yeah.
some people it's
It's so
easier.
easy now too,
Well,
though. It's so easy now.
but like
Yeah.
granted, like some people it's easier to learn stuff. I've always been someone that is very easy to learn stuff. Other people don't have it that easy. But it's still something that's possible because no matter what you want to do, somebody has already done it and they've already written a book about it or made a YouTube video or
Yeah.
something about exactly what you want to do. So it's possible to do. You don't need someone to teach you how to do it, and you definitely don't need to go to school to do it. But like if your life isn't working out, you can figure out how to do it just by learning. And then,
Well, and the best thing about that too is you can start off as like a hobby with projects that you do slowly. And then before you know it, all of a sudden, like you have a set of base skills that can be applied. And then the next one's easier and easier and easier, till you're very
mhm,
good at it. Like
yeah.
it just takes time.
And
Yeah.
then the other thing is just spending. So that is a terrible habit, but that's one
I
that
know.
like I never really realized it until I went through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University because he like goes through and debunks a whole bunch of myths about consumerism and commercials and all this stuff that like you really don't think about on a day-to-day basis.
Well, dude, think about it. We're all taught that when we feel bad, the solution is to go buy something because
Yeah.
that will make us feel good,
Or drink
right? I mean,
alcohol. I
literally.
mean, those are the two
Yeah.
options. It's like you
Yeah.
either drink alcohol or you go shopping. And yeah, but it turns out that that just makes the situation worse.
Oh, I was gonna say, I remember this is going back. This is actually when we first started the podcast. I think we were talking, and you were talking about budgeting one day because I saw you writing down like we bought a coffee or something. And you wrote it
Yeah.
down on there. I remember that because then I started thinking more about it, and like, it's funny because the more I started thinking about, it, the less I started buying, and now like I buy like almost very little, like unless I really need something. Because first of all, most things I buy, I'm unhappy with almost instantly.
Hmm.
Because you don't
Yeah.
need it, or it's just like
The
it's
quality of
crap.
stuff
Like,
is just slipping. I
oh,
get that all the
it's going
time where I
down so
just
much.
like
I
I
know.
buy stuff and I'm disappointed. I'm like, why did I even buy
Well,
anything? Yeah.
well, I remember being young, right? Like when I remember being younger and like when cell phones really got like good, like they were like computers, like when they first came out, they were just phones, but like you know, they'd come out with a new one every year, and like that impulse to get a new one every year, right? And like, but really, like what happens is you get into this habit of getting one every year, and then like the incremental increase is so little, you don't even notice that it's better.
Well, because back
Whereas if
then,
you
every
wait,
year there was like the phones were completely different. Like
yes,
the
yeah, they
different
were
brands
making
would come out.
huge jumps.
Now it's just there's two, maybe three brands of phones, and if you take a look at them from one year to the next, they're identical.
They are. The only difference is you're maybe getting like a couple of percentage points better processing, whatever. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, if you wait a little while, it's way better. It's a better experience. And a lot of times, if you wait for things, you get, first of all, what you want because you can save up for the right thing instead of getting crappy stuff as like a supplement. And you enjoy it more? Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that one.
So I'm pretty much
Another,
spent on my habits, but what else do you got?
I have a couple more. Another one is, I think, a good one is saying yes always. That habit, because I think it's a catch-22. Because I think
Yes, that
saying
is a
yes,
good idea.
yeah.
That is a good
Well, no,
point.
like, because saying yes can be good because you can do new experiences, learn new things, meet new people, all that stuff is great. It can also be detrimental because if you never say no, you're never really making choices, and you're never really thinking about like what you're doing. You become like just like a leaf in the stream rather than something that has some sort of like willful motivation, right? Or abilities. So I think that's a good one to watch out for. If you find yourself always saying yes, people pleasing, like that might be a negative habit that you're engaging in.
I want to talk to that just a little bit. So like this is one area where I struggle with a lot, and I know a lot of other people do too. Like I remember I think Oprah and like Charlize Theron said this is the hardest thing they'd ever done is saying no. But like one thing that I've done recently that's been really helpful is when I want to say no, but I feel like I should say yes, I talk to ChatGPT about it. And I say, hey, I really want to say no to this thing, but I feel guilty about it. I feel like I should say yes. I feel like this. How can I say no while still like respecting the other person, not breaking the relationship? And dude, it is just the stuff it comes up with is out of this world. So it's been super helpful recently for helping me say no.
Well, that's a good idea. And I think that's important too, because when it comes to people pleasing, like people are actually a lot more understanding than most people think.
Hmm.
And most people, especially if they're like people that you're friends with or have a relationship, they're not going to judge you for not being able to do something. And I think, and a lot of times it's our own fears that get in the way rather than like being reasonable and rational, just realizing that like if the person really is friends, they're not going to care, right? Well,
Hmm.
like and people are busy, we understand. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's a good one. It is hard too, and I think it's a good one to be careful about. One other thing too, I think this is another habit I think is worth giving up is avoiding difficult or uncomfortable situations. Because I used to do this all the
Hmm.
time, especially when I was depressed and stuff, right? And I remember so clearly, like my student loans was such a good one because I would just like I started to just ignore it because it felt so impossible to deal with that like my response was just totally ignore it and avoid it. But that just makes it worse. And then the funny thing is, once I finally picked up the phone and started dealing with it, like I felt so much lighter and better. And yes, I still had a mountain of debt I had to work through and all this crap, but it wasn't like this constant problem where like you're getting letters and phone calls and this and that all the time. Like it dealt with that shit and it gave me a plan forward. And I think most of the time, these difficult things we feel like we have to face, they weigh on us, but we make it out way worse than it is. And if you just start dealing with it, or you have that difficult conversation early, it makes it the rest of it so much easier.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where a lot of our boundaries are there because we feel safe, you know? And so,
Yeah.
like, when there's things that you really want to change in your life, oftentimes you need to get to situations where you don't feel safe in order to change
Well,
them.
it's like they always say, right? Like, like a lot of big changes, it comes from taking like a risk and stuff, putting yourself in situations you're not familiar with, taking those chances and say, yeah, great.
Cool. So there you have it, a whole bunch of habits that are worth giving up because, hey, who couldn't use a little bit more time in their day and a little bit less habits? So
Yeah.
if you enjoyed it, we have a bunch of other episodes, hundreds of them. You can find them. Just look up Existential Stoic Podcast. Until next
Yeah.
time, I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, man.